All right, you blokes, it's Josh Lloyd here, ready to look at the NBA slate for Tuesday for your first look for DraftKings. We've got 7 games on. Before I do it, though, why don't you hit the bell? Give it a bit of a ding-a-ling, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. That's great. Now, let's talk games. The first game we're going to take a look at is the Utah Jazz and the Boston Celtics. The Jazz are 5-point favorites. The total is 227.5, and I think the thing we have to watch here is Marcus Smart, whether he has a minutes restriction or not, because if he doesn't, he will start, and that means that Thompson, Tice, and Rob Williams, that trio of centers, somebody is going to miss out. Last game, Tice got his minutes cut. It could be Thompson, but there's a lot of uncertainty there. Now, Tice has come all the way down to 4,200. I'd be heavily skeptical about using him. I just don't know how they're going to run that rotation, and that is one that's primed to burn you on the arse. Mike Conley's at 6,500, and I think that looks pretty good. Really solid cash play, limited upside, but good cash option. While Rudy Gobert at 8,200, just dropped the old 74 last game. Big numbers from Gobert. I like him. He's been underpriced, I feel like, on DraftKings all season long. And while it has risen here, I don't mind that. I think 79 for Jaylen Brown is probably a little bit on the high side, and 9.3 for Jason Tatum, also edging a little bit too high. Well, Don Mitchell's up at almost 9,000, 8,900. Now, he used to be that 7.9 to 8.2 guy. They've bumped him all the way up. The shots aren't really falling for Don at the moment, shooting 39% over his last 2 games. That's not ideal. But has had a couple of 50-pointers in there. He is up and down. I wouldn't feel great about relying upon his floor value. I think there is some upside there, of course. And there is massive upside in Rob Williams. But as I said before, the Tice Thompson-Williams trio, it's going to be squeezed depending on what happens with Smart. He's at 56. That is only GPP. So last game he smashed it. He had 42. But he could easily have 15 points. And that is a real risk with rostering Rob Williams. And in a lot of cases, I probably just would avoid it. Marcus Smart's at 57. I think we can give that a pass until we know that he is back at full tilt. Next game we look at, well, this one is one where you want to get things really prepared for this one, because it's the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls here are 5-point favorites. The total is 223.5, but we know with the Thunder, whose favorite doesn't really matter, because they can trot out literally anybody out there and they seem to make it competitive, or they can get blown out by 50. It's really up in the air, but what I do know is that Darius Bazley is out and Al Horford is out. We've got Lou Dort, who's questionable. Teo Maledon is returning. But that means the big fella, the C-parter, Moses Brown. He is at 3,500. He should be, probably will be, their starting center. He had 23 points last game and fouled out. Very easily get 30 points here. Very easily 10x this one. And everyone's favorite stick insect, Alexei Pokusevski, 4,400. Well, he could burn it for you easily, but he had 48 last game in 39 minutes. You got to love both of those blokes here. Now, of course, Poku could miss every single shot in the world and struggle, but the opportunity is there for both of them. For the Bulls, they made changes to their lineup. So Tomas Satoransky, starting point guard at 3,600. I'm not mad at that. He had 34 points in the first start. Yeah, absolutely. There is so much value in this one that I am loving it. While Thad Young's at 6,100. Now, I'm not as big on Young. It's a chunky price. He had 31 in that first start. The minutes weren't fantastic. I think we can also look at Isaiah Roby, who I think people will be a little bit sour on with Horford out because they started Brown last game, but Roby got 30-plus minutes and can play at the 4 and the 5, so there is value in him. Gilgeous-Alexander at 88 looks like one of the most rock-solid cash guys out there. I'd probably prefer him to Levine and save myself $200 in the process, although Levine, I'd say, has a higher upside. While Patty Williams had a really big game last time out against Toronto. He dropped in 41 DraftKings points with 23 real points on 64% shooting. Now, he's not that guy, so don't get too excited about it. Ty Jerome's at 42. He started last game and beat that number, but Maledon will be back, so that puts a little bit of a dent there. But if Dort is out, I like Jerome as an interesting GPP guy. I wouldn't be too keen on Kobe White or Maledon here. I think they might be just a little bit overpriced for their role. Also, could be the Thunder debut of Svi Mykhailiuk, just so see how that fits into the rotation, especially if someone like Lou Dort is out. There is maybe an opportunity for Svi to step in there. The Atlanta Hawks and the Houston Rockets, another team in this one with some pretty interesting injury scenarios. No John Wall, no Christian Wood, while Daniel House is questionable for the Rockets. For the Hawks, Clint Capella missed last game. He is questionable in this one as well. He's at 7,700. Now, if Clint does play against his former team, I love it at that salary. Victor Oladipo's at 8,300. Now, we know he's one of the biggest chuckers in the league at the moment, but that doesn't really have that much of an impact on DraftKings. He's averaging 44 over the last 5, 47 over the last 3. He should beat that number here. While Kenyon Martin, that is, I never thought I'd see a day this season where Kenyon Martin was priced at 5,300, but here we are. And it's still probably underpriced. He's averaging 35 over the last 3. There's going to be plenty of garbage time for him to get the numbers up. I like Kenyon Martin here. And Kevin Porter's at 7,000. Now, Porter struggled a little bit in the last game against the Celtics. Still put up 24 DraftKings points, but we need way more than that at 7,000. We need what he did the first 2 games, 40 plus. I do think that he is worth using here. Trey's at 10-2. The blowout potential scares me somewhat, but I like using Johnny Collins. He's at 6,700. There's a chance there's no Capella, so John could get a start, and I think we have to have some value there in Justin Patton at 5,300. The general only played 24 minutes for 24 points last game, but he could easily get you 28, 29 without too much stress, and I also like the Italian cocktail Gallinari, 5,900 for Gallo, if and only if Capella is sidelined. Next up, it is the New York Knicks. Forgot to flip that little graphic over. The New York Knicks and the Philadelphia 76ers. This is a back-to-back for the Knicks. They were well down against the Nets and then came back right at the end, or towards the end of that game. So they probably expended a little bit of energy there, but not that those guys wouldn't have played big minutes under Thibodeau anyway. The Sixers are 6.5 point favorites. Totals 215. No Joel Embiid. So Tony Bradley is probably going to be the starting center. He's at 3,700. His last start wasn't great, but 20 fantasy points at sub 4,000 is fine. And he hurt his ankle in that one. Ben Simmons at 9,000, probably on the high side, and we don't know the status of Alfred Payton and Derrick Rose for the Knicks, who have missed the last few games. Shake Milton's at 56. That doesn't do it for me, but I do like Rowan Barrett at 6,200. He has been playing and shooting at a really high level, and the thick hogsman Tobias Harris, you have to love him. 8,500 for TH. Big numbers coming, big usage. Very easily drop a 50 in this game. Randall's at 9,900, and you feel relatively good about where his floor sits, while Emmanuel quickly at 5,800 made his first start, which was always awesome to see, going up against the Knicks, up against the Nets. Inefficient, horribly inefficient, but a big scorer, and that's what he does. So I think he is in a pretty decent spot to provide some DraftKings value for us. Next up, we look at the Cleveland Cavaliers. They are taking on the Miami Heat. This one has blowout written all over it. So that's obviously a level of concern. The Cavs are going to be without Kevin Love, while Bam Adebayo is likely to return for Miami. Now, Bam's at 8,500. He could really cause some damage against this Cavs team. You just worry that maybe they'll be extra cautious coming back from the knee injury, so that could just limit his minutes. But I do like Larry Nance. Now, he has been not good since returning from the injury, but no Kevin Love. He should start, should exceed 30 minutes, and should exceed 25 DraftKings points. So a ton of value there. And I also look for Colin Sexton to bounce back. He was pretty poor last game, but at 7,600, that's a nice salary. I love what Jim Butler's doing. 9,800 is a lot. The blowout risk is a huge concern. But look, he's just dropping 50 after 50 after 50. The last time he didn't drop 50 was the 22nd of February. And he's had 360s dropped in there as well. That's why his salary is up that high. Given it's been such a strong run, and given there is a blowout risk here, I might be inclined to fade him here. Dragic, no thanks. Hero, I don't mind Hero at 5,500. I think there's at least tournament upside there, but I'm not massively into it. Well, Kelly Olynyk's been crushing it, but with Bam back, I would not want to spend 6,600 on him. It's just too high for me to spend on that scenario where Bam is returning to action. The next game, the New Orleans Pelicans and the Portland Trailblazers. CJ McCollum is back. We don't know in what capacity. We don't know what minutes CJ is playing. So he'd be a risky guy to throw out there for DraftKings, but he's going to have an impact and nonetheless on players in some way. Let's look at Jackson Hayes, who has been putting up some really good numbers as a backup center. He's at 3,400, 26, 24, 16, and 20 in the last 3 games. 20 minutes in 3 of the last 4 games. If he gets 20 minutes, he gets 20 points. And at 3,400, no one's going to use Jackson Hayes. Maybe there's something there. 51 for Josh Hart is a good cash play. I like 81 from Ingram a little bit, but more for tournaments. And Lillard's at 10.8. That's bordering on too high for me for Lillard, but I think the matchup does make it make sense. You can fade Gary Trent, no interest there. While Zion down at 8.7 is coming more back into the area that I'd like to use Zion Williamson, whose last couple of games haven't been as good, hasn't hit 40 in 3 games. So he's a soft play, but not a strong one. Bob Covington's at 62, no thanks. McCullum's at 75. Yeah, no way I want to use CJ in his first game back at a price that is as high as that. Carmelo Anthony also playing well. He's at 5,500. It's not bad cash value, but I do think that McCullum's return is going to eat into his usage somewhat. The last game of the day is the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Los Angeles Lakers. This is a back-to-back for the Lakers. The Wolves, they have ruled out Jordan McLaughlin, and Jarrett Culver is doubtful, while Jaden McDaniels will return. He had a false positive COVID test, so he'll be back in action. Montrezl Harrell's at 6,200. He won't start, but he'll come off the bench and should have an opportunity to drop 30+. So I think he's all right there. LeBron's at 10.5. I think there is some rest risk in this game for him. And in-game rest, not necessarily sitting the game out entirely. Rubio's at 5,900, which is not bad, and Towns at 9.5. I think going up against Harrell, he could do some real damage. I think this is a really good opportunity to try to use Towns, even though sometimes the usage is a little bit frustrating. Anthony Edwards is up at 7,200, and that's because he is getting all that usage, averaging 41 points over the last 3. It does make a little bit of sense to use him, but I wouldn't be putting him in a big percentage of lineups, while Jalen Noel at 53 is one that I do really like for tournaments. He's got 35 point upside if everything goes his way and all of the scoring works, which I think it can. So some value there in that game. All right, if we go and have a look now right across the slate for where some value lies, let's do that now. Moses Brown and Pokuševski, they're the two that stand out like dog's balls, really. Tony Bradley, Thomas Satoransky, Larry Nance, Montrezl Harrell, Thad Young, Jackson Hayes, Clint Capella if he plays, Rubio, Josh Hart, Ingram, Oladipo, Kenyon Martin, and Kevin Porter, I think, all come out as looking pretty good over on DraftKings for Tuesday's slate, guys. Don't forget, notification bell, smash it. Thumbs up, knock it out. Give me a comment down below as well, guys. Check my channel out. It's linked in the title and in the description. Josh Lloyd Fantasy Basketball, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. See ya.